So, I guess Dragon Ball is finally coming back, after what was way too long now. Generally, this isn't a news channel, and I want it to stay that way. I always want to primarily talk about the series itself over news or production. That being said, I have a lot of thoughts about Super's return, and I'll be getting pretty heavily into speculation on what the story events of this new adaptation might change throughout this video. Firstly, I just want to get this out of the way. I can't believe we're actually getting a third adaptation of Super. But I understand why they're doing it. That anime arc really is unwatchable. In fact, I feel like not enough people talk about how bad it really is. Sure, it's ugly, but it also kinda poorly adapts the plot. A story like this just doesn't have enough content to fit a 20-episode long anime. I've heard rumors the remake will only be like 6 episodes, and that alone would be a massive improvement towards the pacing of the story. Outside of that, they said they're going to change things a bit. So I'm optimistic they better adapt the main themes of the movie, where Goku struggled with wanting to fight with his own strength opposed to borrowing power from others. While that theme is still in the anime version, they kinda belittle it in execution, adding a much weaker theme of Goku telling Beerus not to tell him what his limits are, which really didn't communicate the genuine relationship Beerus and Goku built as well as the movie did. So yeah, I'm optimistic that this could be the definitive Battle of Gods experience. Over the last few years, it's common to tell people to just watch the movie instead, but the anime actually retcons a few things, so it creates a lot of confusion within the community for new watchers, so it will be really nice to have this new show actually be good, and also canon to Super. Now if you're not aware, there's been a lot of discourse on whether Daima is canon to Super or not, and I've always been a pretty strong supporter of the it's not canon side, since there's far too many contradictions for Daima to fit into Super. However, I do think there's a pretty decent chance that this anime remake will actually change that. While it wouldn't be perfect, if they just stick Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta into the Battle of Gods remake, it would fix the most prominent issues making Super and Daima not fit together. But with that in mind, there's also a decent chance that that doesn't happen and they just treat Daima like a non-canon spin-off like the old movies. But we'll have to wait and see what they do. They'll probably also remake Resurrection of F after Battle of Gods. I really do hope they fix ROF, but I don't think that's feasibly possible. ROF as a story is flawed to its core. You'd have to do an entire plot rework to fix it, and I don't expect them to do that. But at least it'll look pretty. Another thing I just want to briefly mention is Dragon Ball Age 1000. Honestly, it could be cool, but what they showed us basically tells us almost nothing. Age 1000 does imply some kind of connection to Dragon Ball Online, so it's possible we're getting Dragon Ball Online too, or at least some form of a connection to Online. But in terms of what kind of game it is, we basically know nothing. Alright, let's get into the main thing we all care about. After 1,000 years, Dragon Ball has finally returned. The Galactic Patrol arc from the manga is being adapted into the anime. Now, before we discuss that though, there's something that really bothers me about this announcement. I really want to spread this information to as many people as I can. Toriyama did not write this arc. It's well documented in interviews that Toriyama had very little involvement in the creation of this arc. The true author of this story is Toyotaro. He is the one who wrote the entire plot, and it really bothers me that he's not getting the proper credit he deserves. Akira Toriyama was involved, but it's clear that he took a major backseat as Toyotaro got to this point in the manga. At best, Toriyama could be credited as an editor, but the manga itself, and seemingly this new arc as well, both credit exclusively Akira Toriyama to its writing, which is just not true. He didn't write it, Toyotaro did. Like, Toyotaro didn't even get to go up on the stage with all the other people during the announcement. My guy is getting no respect, despite being more important to the series now than all of these other people combined. And that's not to belittle any of these people. I just want to get across how important Toyotaro is, and to see some respect on my goat's name. I think a large part of why they do this is because they're scared of another GT situation, where people all say the new show sucks because Toriyama wasn't involved. But regardless of that, it's still no justification to just lie to us, and especially not credit the actual artist who created the script you're going to profit off of. Okay, let's talk about the arc itself though. What can we expect for this adaptation? Well, it's really up in the air as of now. If you're not super familiar with the history of Dragon Ball Super's anime, then I'll mention the manga and anime ran alongside each other, and both followed Toriyama's original plot outline, sort of going their own directions while still telling the same story. And I really mean it. I don't think a lot of people realize just how different the manga version of the Tournament of Power was. Now, going into this new arc, you would assume that will continue, and they'll adapt a similar but different story following the same major plot beats. But that's where this new arc somewhat diverges, because like I said, Toriyama did not create this arc. There is no Toriyama plot outline. Toyotaro was the author of this arc, even if the manga itself literally lies to us about it. So I'm unsure how the adaptation will work this time around. It might just end up being a faithful adaptation. Now, while I think that's probably what should happen, due to the deceptive nature of this production, I think they actually might change things up, acting like they're following the Toriyama original notes that totally always existed and weren't written by Toyotaro. Even though, again, we have documented statements saying Toyotaro wrote it. But I think I've made my point in that regard, so let's talk about how they might change the story. And yes, manga spoilers will precede this, you have been warned. So, what are the major plot beats for the Moro arc? Well, I'd say it's Mira showing up and recruiting Goku, Vegeta, and Buu, who will go on to be taken over by the Grand Supreme Kai. Then, they somehow end up fighting Moro on Namek, where Moro somehow gains the upper hand and wishes to both restore his magic power and release the prisoners in the galactic prison, which will include OG-73, as he's very important to the plot of this arc, along with tying this arc into the following one. Additionally, Vegeta will show regret for his past actions towards the Namekians. That then transitions to Goku training with Miras, while Vegeta trains on Yardrat, culminating in a final confrontation on Earth, where Vegeta ends up using his new technique to send the stolen energy back to their hosts, saving the Namekians he previously wronged. Then, Miras will end up sacrificing himself for the sake of the universe, helping Goku finally attain the true form of Ultra Instinct at will. I think those are the absolute must-happen parts of the arc, and essentially everything around those events could be changed pretty significantly. Of course, there are a few other things that I think will almost definitely happen, like the ending with Vegeta gathering energy to give to Goku, and a lot of that energy coming from Oob. But it's not actually necessary, even if I do think it will definitely happen. So, what kind of things do I think they might change? Well, in the Tournament of Power, quite a few characters are completely different, both in terms of power and personality. The best example being Kale, who is a silent, serious fighter in the manga, who also has a massive base form level. Alternatively to that, the anime version is nothing like that, being passive and relatively weak in her base form. So for example, maybe Zhao Yogi, one of the more prominent galactic prisoners, will get a larger role in the anime. And in general, I can see the anime expanding a lot on our background cast, getting a larger chance to shine, during their battle with Moro's goons. My biggest wish would be to put a little bit more respect on Ten Shinhan's name, instead of him being a victim of a gag fight, which always frustrated me, as Ten Shinhan's introduction was really the transition point away from Dragon Ball being a gag manga. Though, I'm not that optimistic about this, as Super's anime has a track record for not respecting Ten Shinhan. One thing that literally has to change though, is how in the manga, Krillin references how Master Roshi previously reached a similar state to Ultra Instinct, while none of that happened at all in the anime. Another thing that I think will change is how Manga Goku's version of Blue Kaioken kinda sucked, and was essentially portrayed as a bad form not worth using. Unlike in the anime, where it's basically equal to Blue Evolution, which Vegeta still uses in this arc. So I think there's a decent chance they add in Goku using Blue Kaioken at some point during the arc. In terms of what I'd want to see changed, well, I'd really like to see the part where Jocko is taking out Super Saiyan level goons removed, since it makes absolutely no sense. And I'd really like to see our humans actually win their 1v1 fights instead of Goku showing up and low-diffing all of their opponents one by one. It's a cool Goku moment, but like, I'd rather just see some cool wins for our humans over Goku stealing the win for no reason. You also might think I'd want to remove the Moro Senzu Bean thing, but I honestly don't think it's actually a big issue. People are just feeling the PTSD from when Goku gave Cell a senzu like a lunatic, but these two scenes are really not the same. Goku's senzu in the Cell Saga is portrayed as a lapse in his judgment, and a moment of him misunderstanding his son, helping set up his development later into the story. But the Moro scene is nothing like that. Goku wanted to give Moro one more chance, tying into his earlier conversation with Miras about how killing people is a waste. The same conversation that made Miras want to put his faith in Goku in the first place. If Moro was actually a threat to Goku, I'd agree it's dumb. But that's the thing, he wasn't. Goku was above Moro to such an overwhelming extent that he could afford a moment to indulge his ideals before fully taking him out. The entire bit with Moro absorbing Miras' power after that could honestly have happened regardless of if Moro got a senzu heal or not. But one more thing I could see. The Tournament of Power's ending fight in the anime was quite a bit different to how it went in the manga. So here in the Moro arc, instead of the Ki Susanoo, I could see them having Goku use the Dragon Fist to beat Moro instead. Now the final thing I feel like we should discuss is what's going to happen with Super Hero. Because Super Hero came out a long time ago now, and people will be really confused if this new arc happens before Super Hero in the timeline. Now, I do think they're gonna bite the bullet and just say Superhero happens later into the timeline, but I think there's a non-0% chance they try and put this arc after Superhero, which would have some wild implications. Gohan and Piccolo already feature prominently in this arc, but if it did happen after Superhero, they'd obviously need to use their new forms. In fact, 7-3 actually copies the powers of his opponent, so that part of the story wouldn't need to be changed at all. But you'd kind of expect Gohan to be more important during the climax of the story, if he's already got his El Blanco form. But once again, I don't think any of that will actually happen, just that there's a chance. But yeah, wild things are happening, and I'm very excited to see what happens. I even feel optimistic for the future here. I think we're in for some great content in the coming years. But once again, I hope Toyotaro gets the credit he deserves. And on that, I hope you have a great day, and I'll see ya next time.